right, you ready to dive into this?
Yes, indeed.
Cool. Rick, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Good morning, Chris. Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate this.
Absolutely. All right, so I wanted to have you on really from a high level, and then we could dig into the details. But I wanted to ask you what goes into running a successful 145 avionics shop. Let's start it from there. I know that can go a million directions, but let's see where it goes.
Sure, brother. Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. And so I appreciate the inference, and we have, celebrated our 24th year of being in business. And, we're still a small fish in a small pond with some really big fish. There's been a lot of companies that have grown way beyond Spirit during our term. But quite honestly, I think we've just got a great little company. We've got a really great team of people. We all look forward to walking in the door every day to doing some really fun stuff. And, so I guess it's really about the people, we've just been working really hard to find the very best people, and I know everybody says that, man, but we're very particular. And I think you would see pretty quickly when you came around and meet the staff at Spirit, you would see that we've just got this fantastic team of wonderful people. And, they're our success, man. They really are. They're the ones keeping the customer happy. I always say it's my job to get the work in the door, and then it's their job to get it out the door. And they do it great, man. And so really it's my job to keep the funnel filled and keep the magic happening. And so, yeah, no, it's been great, man. It's been, I guess there's no real magic successful, solution other than, we've just, I've always said, I've long enjoyed the work that I've done doing avionics, working on aircraft, but I rarely had enjoyed the places that I had worked in the past. So that was kind of my motivation to start Spirit, is just to have a place where you could walk in the door every day and there's not a black cloud over the place, and just go do the work that you love to do. And, you spend so much time at work. It's just so important to have a peaceful, productive environment. So we're just really focused on that. We've always been very focused on just having the right people on board with the right attitudes, work ethic, and, the desire to learn. I always say you've got to have a natural, inquisitive spirit about you to be here. You really got to have a willingness to learn every day, because, it's just, this technology changes so rapidly. I was saying earlier, it changes in revolutionary ways. And so all of us are always training. We're always trying to keep up. And, but it keeps it really interesting. And so, yeah, I guess success looks different to different people. We're not, a company of thousands of people these days. We're about 30 people, and we've got 2 locations, one in Columbus, Ohio, and one in Fort Worth, Texas. And it's really been, it's great, steady, slow growth over the years. And we've just got a really solid company that we're all really proud of.
So, how do you create that kind of environment where I know that in the past you were at places with the black cloud hanging over? So, how do
Yeah.
you, what do you, is there, is there a way you either look at your business, or is there kind of like a North Star kind of guiding principle to how you set things up? Like, how do you make that environment happen?
There's a couple things with that. Certainly one is, people, and and there's always going to be different personalities, especially in this field. We're in an industry where, people have very strong emotions about what they're doing. Working on these aircraft, there's a very high level of criticality, and so people can get passionate about this stuff. And so you can have personality conflicts because you've got, you know, different people with the same level of passion, with maybe a different perspective. And so, we always really try our best to kind of find and sense when there's maybe some discord going on between folks, and try to address it early on and get it resolved, and move forward instead of kind of letting steam build up. It's been, it I will say it's a tricky road sometimes, because, I always try to hope for the best in people, and I'm a very patient man. And I always try to work with people as best as we can to kind of, make sure we're all on the same page. And so sometimes it doesn't always work out, but for the most part, it really does. And we keep a team here that's just very, very content and knows what the mission is. And at the end of the day, we want the customer to have the safest airplane possible. And so those are the folks we're really looking for. Like I said, they can all be at different levels of perspective, different views on things, but they've all got the same passion and the same desire to keep it right. And so, we got to, I work really hard to protect that environment to allow people to disagree, but yet to understand one another, right? Because, we all want it right, but we all may have a different way of getting there sometimes, right? And so it just naturally lends itself to people having disagreements. And so I guess I'm really focused on, just trying to sense when there's something going on out there on the shop floor. And even within the ranks, we're just very sensitive to making sure everybody's getting along. We're getting along with the client, we're getting along with one another, we're getting along with our family at home. If there's issues at home, people bring that to work, and we do our very best to help them with that as well. We're very generous in our benefits and PTO, and we really work with our people to make sure that their number one priority is their family, and that their family is as best as we can help them with. And so, that's another thing we focus on here at Spirit is, making sure everybody is holistically ready to be at work. It's not that you're just showing up and you're there to check in and clock in. You got to be there, intellectually, and so that's kind of another thing. We're just always kind of just doing our best to kind of work with the team and make sure that everything's flowing positively. So there's no real one magic formula. I try to be a good Christian servant leader, and I try to be, a good solid boss to everybody. I try to be as fair as possible. Um, and so I think it's just about creating a good environment where everybody's heard. And, again, we're a small company with 30 people. And, I have the luxury to tell everybody that my door is always open to them. They're always welcome to come to me if they're not happy with, a conversation they've had with their supervisor, what have you. If they've got a real issue, please come to me, And so I think having that open door policy, having that, direct engagement, I always do my best to go hang out with the crew. And, as much as I'd love to work on airplanes these days, I'm not, it's not my job. So, but I do go and hang out with them in the hangar as much as possible to kind of get a sense of the vibe that's going on, to make sure that, the team is happy, and you can sense that when you're around them. So, I guess we're just really, again, just focused on the culture, focused on our people, making sure everybody is where they want to be and doing the job that, that they enjoy doing. So,
And you mentioned a servant leadership approach. So it seems like this is kind of ingrained with how you run things. It seems to be a pretty high focus. So and this isn't to throw anybody under the bus or anything like that, but what were some of the things that you saw in the past that maybe they weren't taking that approach, and what were those real effects? Like, just I'm asking this as, let's say somebody else is out there, they're running a business right now, maybe they're growing, and maybe they don't have a great environment in their shop right now. So what were some of the things that you saw at the places that you worked that created those kind of black clouds for the employees that made it not really that either enjoyable to be there, or that it didn't seem like a career for them? It just seemed like a job that you were clocking in and out. Like, what were the mistakes that you saw? And then, yeah, what led to your philosophy there?
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think I've got the advantage of coming up through the ranks as a technician, and I've worked in other places where the supervision just didn't share that perspective and understanding my job, what was required of me, and so I think at Spirit, since I've kind of come up through the ranks, and I grew up working on airplanes through my career, and I've got a sense of what it means to be out there working, especially when you've got a very demanding client and you're coming up on a very tight schedule and things are getting very tense, getting, very intense out there on the hangar. We've got to get a deadline to meet, you know. I think having the ability to understand that situation, understand the load factor that technicians are under, and doing our very best to help them. Um, versus at other places, they just didn't share that perspective. It's just, throw more bodies on it, work more hours, work 12, 14-hour days to get it done. And we're not that way, man. We don't work our people that way. I'm not going to demand that you work 12, 14-hour day. Now, don't get me wrong. When a lot of times we do a lot of trips on the road, we send out field teams to do projects on site for our clients. And so when our teams go out to do that, these guys, they'll work 10, 12-hour days just on their own volition because they want to. But it's not because Rick is screaming at them to get the job done. That'll never happen. If we're going to miss a deadline and it's our fault, then I will take accountability for that. And I'm not going to try to squeeze our people to get me out of you know, a commitment that I gave that I probably shouldn't have. So, I guess, understanding where the accountability lies when we get into these intense situations and not kind of, fostering the liability of that bad decision onto the technicians. Because that's kind of what I've seen is just really poor program management gets filtered down into the technicians and demands that they work more hours than should have been required if they would have had proper planning. So we're always very focused on planning our projects, planning our workforce, and making sure we don't get into these binds where we're just squeezing the golden geese, right? And that's the big thing I think you'll see is, there's these big companies that are just squeezing the golden geese. And I will say, without mentioning any names, but our Texas operation, we stood up and we hired 4 people at a local OEM service center. 4 people. 2 of them were there for 20 years and left the service center to come to small little company, Spirit Aeronautics, just for work-life balance. And they are so happy now. And our customers are really happy to be serviced by very experienced veterans with a really great attitude about their workday. And so, I think, again, it just comes down to, being focused on our people. And since I kind of shared that perspective of, I was the one out there when back in the day, I worked 14, 16-hour days. I've worked longer days, quite honestly. And I know what that means. I know what that feels like. And I don't want that for our people. And I think, I believe, us doing our best to protect the workforce from those type of situations goes a long way. Because a couple long weekends, man, that you're just getting crushed at work and, you work weeks at a time, 12-hour days. It's just very, very difficult. And especially with this new workforce, man, it's all about time off, right? So, we're kind of having to change as well with the workforce. With this new generation of workers coming in, time off is very precious to them. And I get that. And so, we understand that and we address that with our PTO and, with our policies at Spirit. We can kind of help. We're flexible in a way that we can work with our people and allow them the work-life balance that they need to be very content and pleased.
And so that's on the employee side. And so how have you been able to build up these partnership relationships? Like I know you've got Honeywell Aerospace, these kind of partnerships that you built up. How did
Yeah,
that type of stuff come about? What's kind of like, I'm not saying this in a bad way, but like, why would some of these other partnership companies like put their faith in you and say like, all right, we trust you, we're going to partner with you? How did you approach that? How have you made that successful over the years?
that's a great question, man. I have to say these companies are very demanding. These big OEMs for avionics manufacturers, which, by the way, including Starlink now. We're now a new Starlink dealer. And so being able to sell and service, install those products, certainly there's a lot of liability with that. And so, there is quite a vetting process, both financially and performance wise, that you have to go through for these folks. They make sure that, you're going to be representing their company. And so they're going to make sure that you're doing that appropriately and making them look as best as possible to the end customer, the aircraft operator. There's certainly a lot with credentialing. Our company has got a lot of business credentials, repair stations. We've got two repair stations, one in Columbus, one in Texas. So we're very well credentialed, very experienced. Our bench is very deep. Our technicians are highly credentialed, highly experienced. So we've got a great team, great business processes. We were talking earlier about our processes at, Spirit. Because we've been in business for so long, we've got very tight business processes in place. So we run a very efficient machine. And so a lot of those things I believe are factored in, but certainly our reputation goes a long way. If we don't have it, and like I said earlier, this is a big industry with a small tribe, and so your reputation is everything. And you may recognize we really don't do a lot of marketing. A lot of our business comes to us from our industry friends, from our network of corporations and companies that we partner with. So we intrinsically get a lot of business from industry partners of Spirit, including the OEMs. The OEMs send us business as well to sell their product. So and when they do that, there's a high expectation that we engage with that and kind of bring that deal to a close, right? So we're very adept at doing that as well. If an opportunity comes our way or sent our way from the OEM, we're very diligent about following up and ensuring everything gets completed as it should. So we've got some really great processes, great reputation, and just an ability to make great things happen and make it easy for the customer. We're trying to be the easy button, especially with some of these OEMs. You're getting so big now, and support has become a real challenge. And so we're kind of the interface between the big OEM and the aircraft operator. So we're kind of the one shielding them from a lot of the issues that the OEMs have. They're so big now that the OEMs are trying to over repair your part, lose your part, forget about your part. It's hard to say. So a lot of times we're managing repair processes for parts for avionics components, and we're driving and managing those OEMs. And so, we've got a lot of, I'm on the dealer advisory board for a lot of these OEMs. And so we've got a lot of great channels up the chain of command to make things happen within these big organizations. So I think it's very symbiotic, this relationship that we have with these big OEMs. They know that we understand how to operate that machine to the best advantage for the customer. Does that make sense? Because it
Yeah,
can
so
be very
you
complicated.
basically are creating that internal environment that then makes it where your team has that level of experience of expert like of and enough people that have that experience too and expertise that you can not only take care of those customers on behalf of the OEMs, but another interesting piece is that you've kind of plugged into or created these communication channels through the OEMs. So that way you can start to give them real world feedback of, hey, this is the type of stuff we're experiencing. And it takes it away from, hey, OEM, why aren't you helping me? I need all this help. It becomes a mutual back and
Yes.
forth relationship where you're helping them, they can help you because they're actually getting that data back and forth. Um, that's an interesting approach, and I bet that opens up a lot of doors. You mentioned something before we were talking, but that people are operating these aircraft for longer now, and they can't get certain support for certain parts. What are you seeing on that front?
Yeah, it's become a really big issue. With avionics components on board a lot of these aircraft. Some OEMs are really obsoleting these components at a pretty high rate here recently, either obsoleting the part completely or divesting support of the part to a different OEM, a different manufacturer, distributor. And so, it's become very difficult in managing a lot of this stuff and understanding, but we're very adept at that. And that's actually one of the things we work with a lot of aircraft brokers, and we set ourselves apart in doing a pre-buy inspection. We can do a pre-buy inspection on your aircraft, but what we can provide is the ability to look at the avionics equipment list on the aircraft and go through the list entirely and alert the customer what products are on board that aircraft that are currently obsolete or that may quickly become obsolete. And if it is obsolete, here's a solution for it. Here's a quote for to address the obsolescence of that component. We've got your solution right here. So now you can budget that into the acquisition price for the aircraft, and you've got a very knowledgeable buyer because he's looking now at the aircraft more than does it meet all the maintenance inspection requirements, all the checklists, is it current on all of its maintenance requirements. A lot of times that's what you get when you get a pre-buy from the MRO is it's all, they'll go through all the maintenance records and assure you that's tight and that's great. We can do that too. But what we can provide then as well is look at all these particular avionics components made by this particular OEM. This one's obsolete, this radar is obsolete, this FMS is obsolete. Here's your solution now. And so, it's almost a bit of an advantage for us, if you will, to have this knowledge to understand what's obsolete and what's going obsolete and the way to best address it, because there could be multiple ways to skin a cat if you are dealing with the obsolescence issue, say, of a flight management system. In some instances, you're kind of forced to maintain the path with the OEM to upgrade that system with their product and their software, or there could be an opportunity to go to a different OEM and look at their solution for their product offering, and it could be a more competitive solution. So we've got that ability to allow the customer to look more holistically at the aircraft and understanding these obsolescence issues that are kind of happening on it. And yeah, so we're seeing aircraft that are 30 and 40 years old. And, I will say, man, it's hard to deny, you can't buy a TV that's 10 years old and expect it to be supported. You can buy avionics that are 30 years old and they're still supported. So it's amazing that we've come along this far with a lot of these aircraft, with a lot of these avionics still well supported. But in the end, everything's infinite with this stuff, right? This technology is it's going to go obsolete no matter what. And it's just a matter of time. I think it's still quite remarkable that some of these OEMs still support their products all these years later, but at some point they just can no longer do it. They just can't get this sub component, maybe a transistor, maybe a magnetron, maybe a component inside their LRU that it's no longer available, and so they're forced to obsolete the part. And so we see that a lot of times, even with software too. Software becomes obsolete. There's nobody in the OEM that knows anything about that software because it was developed 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
They're all retired. So you have to now upgrade to a new solution. So we're always learning about that because it's fast changing, right? These things become obsolete before you even know it. The OEMs are sometimes pretty good about letting us know, and then we kind of now we have that in our travel knowledge to help our client. But yeah, it's become a major part of our business is dealing with obsolescence issues on aircraft. And quite honestly, I mean, it's always been an inherent part of what Spirit does. I always say that the technology of avionics changes in revolutionary ways, whereas the airframe and the engines kind of just refine over the years. And so, what that means is you've got airplanes that are 10 years old. They need new technology, and we're here to help. And so that's what we do. And now more than ever, it's about connectivity, right? Keeping aircraft connected with the internet, and that's a fast-pacing technology as well. And so with that, I mean, there's going to be over 3,000 airplanes that will have an internet system that's going to go quiet here at the end of next year. There's over 3,000 airplanes with a legacy Gogo air-to-ground system that will become obsolete. And so it's almost a backdoor mandate, if you will, that there's going to be over 3,000 business jets that need a new connectivity solution here within the next 2 years. 3,000
Wow.
aircraft need new connectivity. I mean, we're busy with it already. And now with a lot of airplanes that have an obsolete internet system, it's going to go quiet. I mean, it's not going to slowly, there's going to be a day it ends and you're going to have to upgrade. And if you're a charter operator, of course, you're not going to be able to charter your aircraft if it doesn't have internet because you're going to be competing with aircraft that do have internet. And so it's not going to be an option for you just to let that old internet system die and then make it go away. You're going to have to replace it with a new solution. And so that's kind of, a big part of what we do as well, not only cockpit stuff, but cabin connectivity stuff. It's just the hottest thing. So staying on top of that is critical too.
And what are you seeing with Starlink? Because you just started that relationship. So how's that going, and what does that entail?
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, Starlink is quite a very interesting newcomer to the industry. I gotta say, they seem to be a disruptor here. They're really making a lot of these other satellite providers rethink their solution, rethink their service plan pricing, and so I think Starlink has done a tremendous thing in help shaping things up. When it comes to data, nobody's asking for less data on the aircraft, right? Nobody asks for a smaller data pipe. And so the advancements with these low Earth orbit satellite networks, Starlink and OneWeb, are going to be tremendous when it comes to this kind of connectivity solution. It's pole to pole. These systems go worldwide, so their application is going to go far beyond just domestic U.S. aircraft operators. And so, yeah, the performance of these systems, these low Earth orbit systems, is astounding. Um, you
Really?
know, they 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 perform much better because the legacy satellites are so much further out. The MRSat satellites are about 24,000 miles out, whereas these low Earth orbit satellites, OneWeb and Starlink, are about 300 miles out. And so the ping and the pong goes much quicker between the satellites that are closer versus the ping and the pong of your data signal that goes out and comes back. So things like data streaming, they're going to go much more efficiently on these systems, and the data throughput is going to be tremendous. The data pipe is going to be huge, so you have a lot of users on board the aircraft, and kind of the standard rate now for internet needs for passengers appears to be every passenger is allotted 3 devices to be connected. So you have to budget that for your connectivity solution on the aircraft when you consider that every seat's going to have a person with 3 devices, including your flight crew, right? Your flight crew's taking up bandwidth on board the aircraft as well. And so, it's kind of, I think the Starlink solution and OneWeb, when it comes out for aviation, I think they're going to be very powerful disruptors for the legacy type of connectivity solutions.
That's
I wish
awesome.
they
That
would have
sounds
made the
exciting.
antenna smaller. Yeah, it's very exciting. Starlink, unfortunately, they made their antenna huge. It's very big, and so it can only currently go on large cabin corporate jets or a King Air because it's got a big flat roof on a King Air. Other than that, there's just a lot of aircraft that won't be candidates for the Starlink system, just because the physical size of the antenna can't get on these mid-size and smaller cabin class aircraft. And so, we're hoping Starlink comes out with a solution with a smaller antenna here in the future. It'll make it more applicable to a wider range of aircraft to include the mid-size and super mid-size and small cabin jets. But right now they're just kind of limited to the large cabins. They seem to be having great success there. Um, and so, I can see that continuing on strongly, especially like I said earlier, these legacy air to ground systems are going obsolete. So I think Starlink is becoming a very compelling option for these clients that are addressing the connectivity needs on these large cabin jets. It's going to be tough to beat, man. Um, it really is. They've tiered now their service plan pricing to become more competitive in the business aviation sector. Initially, when they came out to the market, they had one service plan price. It was $10,000 per month, and now they've tiered it, so they've got 2,000, 4,000, 6 different plans for different prices, so you can kind of customize your use for the aircraft. And so, I think the business aviation community was heard. That was one of the things they were saying when it first came out is we want more options on plan pricing, and Starlink seemed to be very receptive and embrace that. So yeah, they seem to be listening to the customers. The system seems to be performing really, really well. I mean, it performs so well. I've heard that normally when you talk about connectivity, you talk about data package delivery rates, meaning how many data packets make it all the way to the end. And so when it comes to a wireless connection, you have data packets that drop in the connection through the air. And so certainly going 24,000 miles up and coming all the way back, there's a higher risk of losing data packets versus just going 300 miles up and back. And so what I'm seeing is Starlink data package delivery rate is about as stable as your home cable. So not only is the data pipe big, the latency is very short for streaming, but the connection is very solid as well. So
Wow.
performance wise, it's very tough to beat.
I feel like we
Yeah,
could
so I
talk
think
about this
Starlink really wants to.
for
What's that?
hours. So
No, I know, man. Yeah.
I want to bring this home, and I think I said this on the interview yesterday too that I did, but I think we should do a part two to this. Before
Amen.
we wrap up, I do want to talk about the Youth Aviation Adventure Program. Can you
Oh,
give
thanks, man.
a rundown of that?
Yeah, so I've been very involved in a youth outreach program. It's called Youth Aviation Adventure. It's been in operation for 20 years. It's a great program. It gets kids interested in aviation careers. And so essentially it stood up as a way to meet the Scouts aviation merit badge requirements. It started here locally in Columbus with my partner in my business, Steve Walken. He started this those years ago. And essentially started out for Steve's kids. They were in Scouts, and Steve being the pilot, he wanted his kids to have the aviation merit badge, and so he put a program together because it's actually very difficult for the Scouts to earn the aviation merit badge. There's 9 different elements that have to be met to meet the requirements for the badge, and they're very disparate. So it's very difficult. And so what we've done is put together a 1 day program where kids can come in and meet all 9 requirements to earn the aviation merit badge. And so it kind of was stood up and kind of stood around the scouting community. And it still does meet that requirement. And quite honestly, the scouts are a big part of the kids that come in because, that it's scouts are very easy to get to as far as letting them know that this program exists. It's very difficult to get the word out to kids, right? There's no database of kids that you can go and blast emails to about a program. But with scouting, we've got a great community that we can reach into and interface with and share with them this program. And so then they show up when we have the program. We hold the program twice a year in Columbus, Ohio at OSU Airport. But as well, we've got it so we can implement it in other cities, and it's been held in 25 different cities now. And actually, recently we've gone international with Tobago. We're holding it in Tobago now, and so this program, it's essentially it's got 9 different stations. Each station has its own theme, and so the kids spend about 20 minutes at each station. And so one station would be aerodynamics, one station would be aircraft pre-flight inspection, and so in the Columbus location, we actually hold it in a hangar at OSU Airport, and we'll have a live airplane there. Last time we had it was we had a Cessna 210, a beautiful 210. One of the volunteers brought in, and so the kids will actually do a walk around pre-flight inspection on the aircraft. And so it's just a really great full immersion in aviation program for kids. It lasts about 6 hours, and by the end of it, then they're just really keyed up on not only the technology of aircraft, which inherently is STEM. There's really nothing more STEM than an airplane sitting there, right? But it also not only does it talk about technology of aviation, but it also talks about again all the great careers in this industry. And so, it certainly talks about being a pilot, but all these great careers. I mean, I was an avionics technician. I love avionics, right? It is my career choice. When I was in high school, I heard the word avionics. And so it really gets these kids the opportunity to come into a hangar environment, to talk with aviation people, to listen about all these different types of technology, all these different career paths engage into. And it's just a wonderful event. And see these kids come in at 8 a.m. in the morning and get around an airplane in the hangar and get bright eyed and bushy tailed and get excited about their program. It's just so rewarding. And so we probably cycled over the years, we probably had over 10,000 kids come through the program. So it's a great program. We hold it a lot of times in conjunction with the Young Eagles program. So the kids will go through our program in the morning and kind of get a quick education on the aircraft itself. And again, one of the stations is avionics and instruments, and so we actually teach kids about the fundamentals of instruments on the aircraft. And so when they go through our program in the morning, and then they go fly with Young Eagles in the afternoon, now when they go fly with Young Eagles, they're asking smart questions, right? They're looking at the instruments, and they know what the altimeter is, they know what the airspeed is. So it's more than just a joyride with the Young Eagles flight when it's held in conjunction with our program because it's very educational.
There's deeper
So it's been a great
understanding. So you have
program.
a deeper
Yeah.
appreciation for what's actually happening.
Yes. Yes. So it's a powerful program. Like I said, it meets all the requirements for the aviation merit badge, both for the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, Scouts of America now. And so, but we also reach out to like urban youth groups, church youth groups, just wherever kids may be, friends, uh, family, or whoever. But it's just a great way to get kids to come into the airport, get into a hangar, get around aircraft, and be around people, that love aviation and want to teach these kids something about the things they're so passionate about. And so like I said earlier, the program has been exported to different cities, and so in different cities we have a complete program to offer. And a lot of times, then the city will reach out to local EAA chapters to get volunteers to come out and staff the event, and that's always a big success, surprisingly, but it is. And then as well, we reach out to local scouting community, and scouts show up by the droves. And so, it's very easy for us to stand up now a satellite location. We call them squadrons, and stand up a new squadron somewhere and reach out to the local aviation community, reach out to the scouting community, and it's almost a success now. So yeah, we're just kind of looking to grow the program in new cities and new regions, and we've got everything that they need to put it together.
Nice. All right. And so where can people get in touch with you to either learn about Spirit or ask you a question or learn about the program?
Yeah, please, anytime. I mean, the Youth Aviation Adventure Program, it's youthaviationadventure.org is the website for those folks. And call me anytime. I mean, my cell phone number, it's 614-537-3052. My email is rick@spiritaeronautics.com. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'd really love to talk to anybody about that stuff. That's my passion, is to fill the funnel for the next generation. It's been such a great industry to me. I think I shared with you. It was really the technology that got me into the aviation industry, but it's really been the people that kept me in this industry all these years, because it's full of wonderful people and high achieving, honest, great people. And we need more of those. And we have to go out and actively recruit them. We've got to find those people to bring them in the industry. And so that's kind of been a passion of mine, is to help with that.
It's awesome, man. Well, thank you for joining me here. I appreciate it.
You got it, Chris. Thanks for the opportunity to be a part of your podcast, man. I appreciate you and the success of it. That's
Thanks.
great, dude. Well done on this.
Thanks. See ya.